welcome everyone. Hope you had a great weekend watching the Masters, watching the Braves, or just simply enjoying the beautiful weather we had yesterday. It's so great to see all of you. We have the pleasure of Reverend Doc Hollingsworth leading us in our invocation and pledge of allegiance, and then Gray Campbell is going to help lead us in the singing of the national anthem.
Let's pray together. Oh God, on this second day of Holy Week and 9 days into Ramadan and just 4 days from the start of Passover, all of our imaginations are more awake to the ways throughout history that you have delivered us, and we ask you to deliver us again. In the sacredness of this season, it is clear that we need rescue. We've still not learned to love beyond the categories we put on each other. We've still not figured out how to conquer selfishness on our own. We have messed up your shining hope for us. Right now, this very hour, some of your children are reloading weapons in Ukraine, trying to kill others of your children over patches of dirt. We do need your deliverance again. And we pray for your extraordinary and miraculous intervention, even as we pray that we might be inspired to be part of that solution. In the shared commitment of this room, we pray for our city. We celebrate our friendships. We give thanks for this food. We open ourselves to the hope that we might choose service over self. We don't always. So grant us the courage to do so that we might be agents of the peace and the deliverance that this holy season inspires. Amen. Would you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please sing our national anthem together. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light, so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose stars and bright stars through the perilous fight, ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave, and of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, and enjoy your lunch. Good afternoon again. Happy Monday. Welcome to Rotary, the world's greatest Rotary Club. Thank you also to so many of you who joined us last week at our second official Rotary on the Road at Norfolk Southern. Norfolk Southern truly rolled out the red carpet to us, and it was just the perfect kickoff to our supply chain series and a wonderful way in turn for us to welcome Norfolk Southern as Atlanta's newest corporate citizen. I wanted to say a special thank you again to Gina and her team, and Bob Hope, who helped connect us with Norfolk Southern, Billy Levine, of course, Adrian Cronje, David Allison, Bill Hennigan, David Rubinger. It was a huge team effort, and I just wanted all of us to share our applause with them for a great, great outcome. We continue our supply chain series today as well with another fantastic program. After our announcements and new member introduction of Joyce Rito, Adrian Cronje will walk us through a series of key issues impacting the supply chain arena. And following that, our featured speakers from Manhattan Associates, Eddie Capel and John Huntz, will engage in a conversation about the impact of consumer expectations on the supply chain. We begin, though, in the meantime, with a warm welcome to all of our guests and visitors. If each of you could please stand and remain standing when I call your names, so we can welcome all of you at the end. We have Allison Fillmore, guest of Joyce Rito, Danielle Zimmerman, guest of Helene Lawless, Mary Lowell Pettit, guest of Billy Levine, David Hartnett, guest of Katie Kirkpatrick, Amanda Bisgard, guest of Lauren Kuntz, John Wells, guest of Jeff Anderson, Al McCrae, guest of Joe Handy, Masood Alabush, guest of Baha Zidane, and Dennis Long, guest of Joe Handy. Welcome to all of you. Please join me also in wishing a happy birthday to all of our April birthday Rotarians. You'll see their names there on the screen. I hope you all have a terrific birthday month. Congratulations also to Dr. Beverly Tatum on her new role as interim president at Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts. Beverly has been such a leader at Rotary for many years now, most recently serving as the head of our pre-screen committee in membership. We are going to miss her dearly, but we were also relieved to find out that she will be back in Atlanta following this interim chapter. So congratulations to Beverly. Two exciting events right around the corner following our supply chain series. On May 2nd, we welcome Mayor Andre Dickens as our featured speaker. He will give his annual mayoral address to the club. And then on May the 9th, we host our spring cocktail reception at the Atlanta Botanical Garden. This year, as you may remember, the Omicron variant put the kibosh on our beloved holiday party, and so we're so excited to get back together this spring. It'll be a wonderful night of fellowship, cocktails, dinner, and we will be among the very first of the group to see the brand new origami exhibit at the Botanical Garden. So please join us for that. All club members and spouses or partners are invited and warmly welcome to attend. And please be on the lookout for the invite so you can sign up in your program email. Finally, our thoughts and prayers remain with those in Ukraine and all of our members and fellow Rotarians who continued to be impacted by the invasion from Russia. I also wanted to say a special thank you to Jim Reed for all of his diligent research exploring opportunities for us to support and contribute to that effort. And also thank you to all of you who've given so generously in support of that situation. I now have an opportunity to welcome Jenna Kelly, who will introduce new member Joyce Rito.
Good afternoon. On behalf of my co-sponsors, David Rubinger and Lillian Giornelli, I am pleased to introduce you to our new member, Joyce Rito. Joyce is a partner in the Atlanta office managing partner of RSM, which is the 5th largest accounting firm in the U.S. RSM opened their Atlanta office in 2009, and Joyce has led that office since 2016, growing the practice from 80 to 280 people and from 7 to 19 partners. Originally from Minnesota, Joyce is an audit partner whose client work focuses on international private equity companies in the consumer products and manufacturing space. With 30 years of public accounting experience with both Big Four firms and RSM, she spent 19 years in Charlotte, ultimately leading the RSM office in Charlotte before taking the role of CFO of a large multi-billion-dollar private family grocery chain based in the Southeast. After Joyce returned to RSM to lead the Atlanta office in 2016, she was then elected to RSM's board of directors for a 4-year term and also chaired the newly formed Strategy and Innovation Committee for 3 years. I've known Joyce for 17 years as we met in Charlotte in 2005. Not only was she a great advisor and help in the efforts I was undergoing to build a middle market banking practice for SunTrust in Charlotte, she was also one of the few businesswomen I knew at that time who liked to golf as much as I do. When Joyce was CFO, I also had the pleasure of being her banker before moving into a new role myself. Joyce was honored with the Charlotte Business Journal's Women in Business Award and Charlotte's 40 Under 40 Business Award. She has been actively engaged in the community as a board treasurer for Susan G. Komen in Charlotte, as well as with United Family Services in Charlotte. In Atlanta, Joyce has been honored by the Atlanta Business Chronicle as one of Atlanta's top CEOs. She is a former member of the Susan G. Komen Atlanta board before it was merged with Komen National, and she's currently a member of the Eastlake Foundation board. One little-known fact about Joyce is that she was a Rotarian 28 years ago in Charlotte for 3 years, shortly after moving there from the Midwest. And you can also all help me wish her a happy birthday, as she's one of those April birthdays. Her birthday is tomorrow. Joyce and her husband Bob live in Decatur and are the proud parents of Justin, who is in 6th grade. The family enjoys golf and spending time at their lake house in Lake Oconee when they're not working in Atlanta. Please join me in welcoming Joyce to the Atlanta Rotary Club.
Rotary Club, happy birthday, early happy birthday. I love knowing of your accounting expertise, and we have a fearless finance committee, so we may have to pull you into that, yes. But so excited to have you as a new member, and I know you will love being part of this wonderful organization, so welcome.
I already do.
Thank you. I am now pleased to introduce fellow Rotarian Adrienne Cronier, who will lead us into our featured program for today. In addition to serving as president and CEO of Ballantine, as you know, Adrienne is our Fearless Club secretary and is widely recognized for his expertise in the supply chain arena. He has, for the month of April, managed to pull together an all-star group of speakers on the supply chain topic, and in topics ranging from ports to rail to money to consumers and everything in between. We are so fortunate to have his expertise and leadership right here in our own club. So please join me in welcoming Adrienne. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. So as President Catherine said a moment ago, our supply chain series kicked off very successfully last week at Norfolk Southern, where CEO Jim Squires declared the railroad industry back from the dead, with the possibility of having single-driver engines soon. Can you imagine that? Even if you remain skeptical about the possibility of the trucking and railroad industries integrating in the future to transform supply chains efficiently. Today, we're going to dig a little deeper on several of the themes that impact our businesses and our community in and around the physical supply chain, taking advantage of the unique view that Eddie Capel, the CEO of Atlanta-based Manhattan Associates, has. Eddie has had a front row seat to the perfect storm that has constrained the capacity of supply chains worldwide. Today, we will hear his insights on if, and when to expect these disruptions to ease, and on how consumers' buying behavior in particular has forced a permanent transformation in the global physical supply chain with deep implications for our regional economy and for our community. So let me tell you a little bit about Manhattan Associates. It's a fascinating company, and we can all be very proud as Atlantans that Manhattan calls it home. It's a global leader in supply chain technology. It was actually founded in 1990 in Manhattan Beach, California, before it relocated to Atlanta in 1995. At that time, it's hard to believe, it was a 32-person company with annual revenues of around $11 million. The Atlanta airport, educational institutions like Georgia Tech, and the Eastern Time Zone were the key drivers for the move to Atlanta. The company's profitable growth accelerated after the move, enabling a successful IPO in 1998. Manhattan Associates finished 2021 with revenues of over $650 million and a recent market value in excess of $10 billion. Talk about wealth creation right here in Atlanta. This is a noteworthy fact for me, at least. The company has been profitable every year since inception, which puts it in a very small group of technology companies having weathered several recessions. One of Manhattan's co-founders, Deepak Raghavan, is a club member of ours and helped put this program together. Sadly, Deepak had to be in India this week as his father passed away last weekend. I know we all hold him and his family tightly in our thoughts and in our prayers. So we had to deputize another long-standing club member, John Hunts, my colleague at Ballantine, who serves as Manhattan's chairman of the board. Thank you, John, for stepping into the breach at such short notice. We received several questions from today's audience in advance, and I know you will address those during your panel discussion. Please continue to send those questions to me or to Gina in advance so that we can make sure that our remaining panels address what's on your mind. So finally, let me introduce Eddie. Eddie joined in 2000, so he's been a more than 20-year veteran of Manhattan Associates. He stumbled his way, as he told me a moment ago, into the corner office in 2013. Sometimes the best candidates are internal and not external. Prior to joining Manhattan Associates in June 2000, Eddie held various positions at Real-Time Solutions, including Chief Operations Officer and Vice President of Operations, where he led teams that supported the supply chain strategies of companies like Walmart, Amazon, and JCPenney. With support from the board, Eddie embarked on an ambitious journey to transition Manhattan to be a cloud-first company. The successful transition to the cloud has further solidified Manhattan's position as the true leader in supply chain solutions globally. The company's innovation engine is fueled by strong investment in research and development. I know you'll be touching on those themes in a moment or two. And in fact, the company has invested almost $1 billion over the last 10 years in developing a market-leading product platform, enabling its customers to address the evolving needs of the complexities of today's supply chain. Here is a fun fact about Eddie. Eddie boxed as a teenager, and after 37 years of retirement, in February 2018, laced him up for a bout at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where he raised $130,000 for a deserving charity. You need to ask him the question about his hero, Sugar Ray Leonard, when you have a moment or two. So let's welcome both Eddie and John to the stage to hear how Manhattan has boxed so cleverly over the last 3 decades, and to see whether this program is going to influence Raphael's forecast in May. He left with his tail between his legs after Norfolk Southern. Come on up.
As you tell, Eddie's been with Manhattan for 20-some-odd years, and he and I have worked together over those 22 years, 22 plus, I guess, at this point. And I've had the pleasure of being chairman of the board for about 20 of those years. And so we obviously work reasonably closely together. Other members, David DeBerry, who's sitting in the office, out here in the audience, we've spent a lot of time over the years together. That's when he was legal counsel, and that's how I got introduced to Manhattan early on. So thank you. So I think Adrian's introduction was very good. You can tell, Manhattan's role in the supply chain space, supply chain execution space, is recognized by everybody in the industry as being, we are a leader of innovation and execution across the board. So And Adrian's already mentioned that Deepak could not be here. So I agreed to fill in, but we did try to get this gentleman to step in my place, and Deepak's place. Because if you talk about supply chain challenges, his challenges are a little bit more than most. So, and he's pretty familiar with it. He's done it for a few years. But we couldn't get him, he was busy. So you have to deal with me just throwing some softball questions at Eddie, and Eddie throwing out, the intelligent answers. So, also, in addition to Deepak, Tom Noonan, who I didn't see today, he's a member of the club, is also on the Manhattan board with us as well. I was on my way home from Madison yesterday afternoon, and coming in I-20, and there was a tractor trailer truck up ahead of me, and he had a sign on the back of it that said, if you don't like so many trucks on the road, stop buying stuff. And I thought that does capture it pretty well. Yeah. Because so much of this challenge in supply chain is being driven by consumer demand, consumption, at all levels across the board. So I thought that was pretty good indication of where things are. Well, we talked a little bit about the pandemic, the war in Ukraine. There's a lot of things going on politically in the world, all of which are impacting and creating, we hear every time you look at the news, something about worker shortages in the service industries, the transportation industry, factories. Everywhere you look, there's hiring signs everywhere. There's not enough to meet this new capacity demand. Fuel prices are getting everybody excited again, especially for truckers and people that are doing any kind of long haul. Spiking demands, this again gets back to this consumption side, when there's limited supplies. The demand has not softened, and supplies are still in things like computer chips, raw materials to make products. Then we see these bottlenecks over and over again in the global shipping, for either at the ports where they got big backups, or then we had a situation like the Suez Canal getting blocked and everything getting backed up there. That's creating another problem. So I think Adrian used the term the perfect storm. There's a lot of these things coming together to create the perfect storm, and constraining the capacity of the supply chain. But at the same token, everybody's realizing just how critical supply chain is to literally everything we are all doing. It doesn't matter which business you're in, it has a critical role to play in that. So Eddie, you have a front row seat to both the visibility of these problems as well as what the market leaders are doing to address them. Tell us about your view on what we're facing now, and more importantly, where we might be headed.
Yeah, well, it's a big, deep, broad topic, obviously, supply chain. And I know you've got a fantastic series set up over the starting last week and the next couple of weeks with Norfolk Southern, the Port Authority, and then the financial supply chain. We focus largely on the finished goods supply chain. So getting goods in your hands and on your doorsteps and so forth. So, largely when product hits, an inventory hits the shore here. The headline from my perspective, and we'll get into this more deeply as the time goes on, but the headline as to when will the situation ease and when will supply chain disruptions begin to smooth out? Not this year, is my view of the headline. When you look across our customer community, I don't think we're going to see things stabilize this year, unfortunately. We'll talk a little bit more about that and why. But from our perspective, we've been through a couple of cycles here over the last couple of years, and frankly, it's all about the inventory, right? It's all about the inventory, and we've been through these cycles here. As we entered into the pandemic, we had plenty of inventory. right? We had plenty of inventory, but we're in a situation where demand was peaking in certain areas. Obviously, we all know about the toilet paper and the sanitizers and so forth, all those kinds of things. We had lots of inventory. In fact, the challenge at the beginning of the pandemic was with stationary inventory, right? There were a lot of people worried about perishable and seasonal inventory. And I don't just mean, groceries and those kinds of things, but inventory for most companies is purchased, 12 months ahead of time, right? Manufacturing is happening offshore, so inventory, whether it be fashion or hard lines, are ordered 12 months in advance. And what you saw with all of the retail store doors being closed was a lot of stationary inventory, and nobody likes stationary inventory. That's working capital that's not being utilized and is in a really tough spot. So the first wave we went through is, how can I get that stationary inventory in the hands of the consumer? And we saw a lot of creative things happen. We saw distribution centers, really the hub of distribution and getting inventory to you, be affected by COVID, whether it be I'm not allowed to have enough people in the warehouse for it to operate effectively, to obviously sickness and health issues around the supply chain. And people had to be creative. Retailers particularly had to be creative. They've got all this inventory stuck in stores and nobody in those stores. So the creative ones turned those stores into distribution centers. They weren't allowed to open the stores for you to come in from a foot traffic perspective, so they quickly turned on a dime and utilized those stores as miniature distribution centers to get those products into your hands. It took some creative technology and some creative innovation and so forth, but they were able to get that inventory out of the stores for the most part and into your hands in a reasonably timely manner, and again, getting that working capital back into their coffers so they could rebuy for the next season. Where we've landed now, of course, is we've got a supply problem. Right? You've got a supply problem on our hands. We've got bottlenecks in the supply chain because of labor shortages. We've got the ships hanging off of the port of Long Beach because of the capacity issues. You'll hear more about that from the folks at the Georgia Port Authority, but we've really got a supply challenge. My comment around things not getting resolved this year already goes back to examples. I was talking with the global CIO of Adidas, the apparel footwear company, and they said, look, we've had factories, particularly in Vietnam and in Southeast Asia, that have been shut down for 30, 45, and 60 days in the back half of 2021. And we're not going to be able to recover that capacity. Right, we're not going to be able to recover that capacity. And when is that going to impact us? Holiday season of 2022. Right, those shoes, that apparel was all being built for your consumption in the holiday season of 2022. And that's not coming back. Right, just one simple example. And we're seeing that across the supply chain. So the focus for most of our customers as inventory hits the port, wherever it may be around the country, is how can I manage the inventory that I've got in the most accurate and productive way? How can I get the inventory to where it needs to be? And frankly, how can I maximize my profitability? You saw some of this in the peak season of last year. Frankly, I don't mean to be a cynic about it, but some of the big retailers said, hey, listen, we're not going to open on Thanksgiving Day. Right, we're going to give that time back to our associates so they can spend time with their family. Yeah, my view, honestly, yes and no. They didn't need to open. Right, you didn't see all the pre-Thanksgiving sales. You didn't see the massive slashing of prices, did you? Right, because inventory was in demand. Demand was up, supply is down. So all those massive sales and the need to be open at 4 a.m. on Thanksgiving Day and so forth to be one-upping the retailer next door, not there. Not there. As you went through earnings season for the retailers, there was growth for sure. Growth across the board, but earnings outstripped revenue growth because, again, the sales and the markdowns weren't there. And we're going to continue, my opinion, we're going to continue to see that through 2022. Just as you look at, again, the inventory levels coming in from offshore manufacturing. And, you know, there certainly is a focus on nearshore and onshore manufacturing, but honestly, that's not going to be fully baked out and resolved for the next 5 years. Because building those factories, getting the workforce skilled up, and certainly in these labor markets, is not going to be anything that's going to happen overnight. I'm not trying to create a doom and gloom situation here. Capacity is returning. Okay, so the short-term life cycle products are going to start to see flowing in, but those products are going to manufacture at the end of last year that we would expect to see in the middle of this year for serving the peak season. There is going to still be some shortage. I expect that to recover fully, the manufacturing capacity in 2022 and 2023 to be back to full capacity from an inventory perspective. But they're interesting times, right? So we've got to apply, we feel like, the application of technology to be able to maximize the impact of inventory across the world is certainly being adopted by many of our customers. And maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into how you will, to John's point of the stop buying stuff, if you want less inventory, supply chain challenges, how you all, and myself included, are impacting those challenges, how the expectations of us all are being changed.
So to follow on that, we've, for not just years, but decades, in just the period that I've been involved in this, the discussion has been around how do we have more efficient supply chains? The right product at the right place, at the right time, for the right price, being delivered to the ultimate consumer. That concept and the expectations around that continue to evolve and become more intense. Given that, can you talk about what some of our customers are doing to try to buy or build into that more efficient supply chain? Yeah,
I mean, look, it comes back to the best use of inventory, the most effective movement of inventory. One of our big investments over the last decade or so, Adrian mentioned it, we've made a big moving to cloud technology. And let me give you a little bit of insight there as to how not just we, but companies like us are benefiting from moving to cloud technology. There are capabilities that can be delivered today through cloud technologies that could not be delivered, just simply could not be delivered in the past. Look, we all benefit from them, right? The analogy I always use is a little off track here, but we spent years, if we were going to drive down to the beach or something, we pull out our Rand McNally map, right, and we'd look at it and we'd say, okay, here's the route, it's this many miles, average miles per hour, going to take me 6 or 7 hours to get there. Then we moved, and we had a digital version of that. It was pretty cool because we didn't have to have the pages anymore and so forth, but really the result was still the same. Right, same number of miles, same average speed. That's how long it's going to take me to get there. Today, we think about it very differently, right? Because we pull up Waze, and Waze says, this is when you should leave. This is how long it's going to take. And whilst you're en route, it says, no, change of plan. We're going to divert you here. By the way, be careful of this pothole. Be careful of this speed trap. Be careful of this stationary car. None of that would be possible without the cloud. Not possible, right? It's only cloud technology that allows that to be possible. Because you've got tens of thousands of people, you and I, getting data aggregated in the cloud, all being uploaded to the cloud, and then enriching that application, that Waze application. So now you slow down, you speed up, you turn left, you turn right. That was never possible without the cloud. Similarly, in the supply chain, right? We've got the ability to be able to aggregate data and make much smarter decisions across the entire breadth of the supply chain. Then, in addition to having the data aggregated and be able to enrich applications and be able to inform every participant in the supply chain, you've got the ability to be able to apply machine learning and artificial intelligence. Machine learning thrives when you've got tons and tons of data and a lot of repeatable tasks. Tasks that happen over and over and over again. Because then the computer could look at all of that data, all of those repetitive tasks, and learn the best way. So if you've got view now across the global supply chain, all that data aggregated, great technology, right, that can apply machine learning to figure out exactly when products should leave, how they should be shipped. Is it worth me sending that product via air, or can I ship it via ocean? Much less expensive, much more expensive. We know the speed difference there, because what does the demand look like? No point in rushing something on an aircraft to get it to a place where there is not going to be demand for another 6 weeks. Vice versa, you don't want to miss the opportunity. So the application of technology in the broader supply chain gives us the opportunity to be able to deliver greater visibility, greater intelligence, and get the right products in the right place at the right time, which is obviously the expectation of our customers, retailers, wholesalers, manufacturers, but also the consumers as well.
So there's a major online retailer out of the Pacific Northwest, to remain unnamed, that has definitely radically changed the online buying experience for most consumers.
Yeah.
And the expectation level. So leaders of other retail businesses in particular have had to rethink how do they address their business model and do something about that. Can you share any?
Yeah, well, look, there's no more exciting space, no more exciting time to be in retail and retail related. By the way, there are so many more retailers today than there have ever been, right? Companies that you would have never thought of 5 years ago as being retailers think of themselves as direct retailers today. Whether that be, let's go stay on that sporting goods, Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour. Right, if you were going to buy Nike or Adidas, where would you go? Foot Locker, Finish Line, Macy's, that's where you'd go. Right, today, likely you're going to go to Nike.com. Right, you're going to be brand loyal. And why not go there? That's where the biggest selection. If you know you want Nike, or you know you want Adidas, or you know you want Puma, go to the source with the greatest selections. Those companies have turned into being retailers. They have to be. They have to be. They never spent any time thinking about serving the last mile of the consumer. They were interested and focused on shipping large truckloads of products to Foot Locker, Finish Line, Macy's, and so on around the world. Now they have to worry about how they're going to get a single pair of shoes or a single pair of socks to your doorstep. They never had to think about a return. Forget about it. Those returns went to those retailers, and if they didn't like them, they went to the secondary market. Now they have to accept returns from you. Those businesses have been transformed. And the same thing is true of industrial wholesalers and manufacturers that you would have never thought of being retailers. The Schneider Electrics of the world, the Grangers of the world. When you think about automotive afterparts, right? Those service part businesses look just like retailers to us today. So the number of retailers is growing dramatically. But and then there's the want and the need, right? You sign up for, onto online retailers today, you're probably going to get that product tomorrow, whether you want it or not. Whether you want it or not. And never mind the need part. Never mind whether you need it or not. You're going to get it whether you want it or not. And there's a whole other topic of supply chain sustainability around that if I get a couple minutes, we'll spend some time on. But I think the interesting thing for me, up until fairly recently, meaning a few years ago, honestly, retail hadn't changed for hundreds of years. Hadn't changed. Retail hadn't changed. Right, retail stores. What did you do? You walked in the door, you picked product off the shelf, you paid for it, and you walked out. That's how it worked. Stores got bigger, they got smaller, they became enormous, rows and rows of envelopes and paper clips and all those kinds of things. But it didn't change. You walked in, you picked the product up, you paid for it, you left. How you paid might have changed, but nothing changed for hundreds of years. Not so today. Because those stores, single function facilities. And all you ever heard about from earnings calls and from retailers is how many stores you build and how big are they? That's it. That's it. Single function facilities, single path to growth, bigger, bigger, more, bigger. But not today. Right? Those retail stores are multi-function facilities. They certainly are still cash and carry, no question about that. But they're billboards for the digital business. Right? We know for sure, if a retailer closes a store in a zip code, their online sales go down because they don't have presence, which is why you see the Amazons of the world buying bricks and mortar. They know they've got to have a blended strategy. Stores are not dead. But stores are customer service centers. You buy product online, you return those products to the store. They're a customer service center, right? You buy online, you pick up a product in the store. You buy online, you drive by and pick up at the curbside. You buy online, retailers use those stores to ship products out. They're miniature distribution centers. They're galleries. Some stores you go into, you view product, you can't even buy it and pick it up right there. And they're boutiques. They're multi-function facilities today. Now what you'll notice, of course, is generally speaking, this will happen over time, retail stores are going to get smaller. Much more technologically enabled because they have to be to service this multifunction demand and the expectations that you have of the answer when you go into a retail store. Because think about the answer that you got quite a lot of the time over the last 20, 30 years. You'd go in, got my color, got my size, or whatever the situation might be. No, we don't. And you accepted. We all accepted that no. If you come back next week, we might have it because we're getting a shipment. I can't, sure, but we're getting a shipment in and there might be some. So if you come back, you might have it. There's a lot of no's. Today, the answer can't be no. The first answer is yes. Yes, I can get that for you. It may not be here, but the answer is yes. And how would you like me to get that product to you? Do you want to come back and pick it up, go to another store and pick it up, ship to your office, ship to a locker, ship to your home? Okay, the answer is yes. By the way, you may have built a virtual cart online before you came to the store and carry that virtual cart with you to the retail store. Hey, I've already picked out these 4 products, but I'd like to exchange this one, add this one, change this. Great opportunity, by the way, for the retailer to do what they want to do when they get you in the store. Cross-sell and upsell. Make that basket bigger, regardless of how big you started it to be. They want it to be bigger. So there's going to be a massive technology revolution in that retail store because, frankly, at the end of the day, the system that has been running the retail store for the last 100 years, the little glorified calculator that sat in the corner, right? All it did was consummated that transaction, whether it be cash, check, credit card. And that little glorified calculator can't run a multi-function, highly technology-enabled store that is coming to a cross street near you. This is a pretty fun time. And, look, it's my view, a little biased here. My view is it's not a question of should I invest, right? You have to. If you're a retailer, you have to invest in technology to meet the personalization expectations that you have and the delivery expectations that you have that may have been set for you by somebody else, but nonetheless, you have them today.
So with all these changes taking place on what these stores look like and so on, of particular interest for our real estate focused members.
Yeah.
What do you think the future of the mall or the parking lots that can hold 10,000 cars?
Yeah.
Look, what's your view of the future of that?
Yeah. So look, I mean, I think some of it's personal opinion. You as consumers will have your personal perspective as to whether the mall is an attractive place for you to go and shop. It is convenient. Obviously, you see a lot of products all at the same time. And I'm a big advocate. The store is not dead. There's no chance that the store is dead, and so forth. But the big multi-facility mall, there are challenges. There are challenges with that, right? Because if you look, certainly we've got customers, Victoria's Secret and Company just broke away from Bath and Body Works, but at the beginning of COVID, they closed about 17% of their stores. All of them were mall-based stores, right? Because their strategy is multi-function store facilities. So you can buy online, whip by that store in your car, stop at the curb, have the product handed through the window, you're off to your next assignment, or, stop, go in, have a quick, be sure the inventory is there when you go to pick it up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And thirdly, use that store as a miniature distribution center. If they don't have the product in a distribution center, or that store is closer to you to meet your service level of tomorrow delivery at a reasonable shipping cost, I'm going to ship that to you directly from the store. Those things are hard to do if you're jammed in the middle of a mall, right? Getting parcel pickup, getting deliveries, getting you to be able to do a drive-by, right? You park in the back 40 and you have to walk all the way in, versus, right, a sort of a strip mall-ish type environment where you get the chance to park close, move in, and so forth. So, I think those big mall complexes are challenged.
So, as that continues to go on, and we can't get away from this issue of sustainability, and we hear it everywhere in financial reporting. Every time you go anywhere, somebody's talking about sustainability. How does that impact the supply chain, and what does that mean? Are there things, we've had discussions around, can you pack more in one box?
Yeah,
can you
sure.
pack more boxes in one truck?
Yeah, well,
talk some about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, supply chain sustainability, I think, is an interesting topic. Of course, I think everything in supply chain is interesting, but supply chain sustainability about 15 years ago was sort of in vogue. Frankly, we had, a bunch of folks come talk to us, big companies, about their focus on supply chain sustainability. It's waned. It's waned up until recently. And the reason it waned is if you think about, green manufacturing, it's expensive to manufacture products in a sustainable way. You've got to build factories, you've got to build processes, maybe products, and so forth. It's a very thoughtful and very expensive process. For the most part, though, supply chain sustainability and profitability is symbiotic. If you can take miles out of the supply chain, if you can not ship air, if you can have great packaging, it means profitability. So a focus on supply chain sustainability up until now was just inherent. So it became, less talked about because people just did it, companies just did it automatically. The better supply chain sustainability footprint that you had, the more profitability, the more profitable you're going to be. The problem, I think, is in more recent times. We all suffer for it, whichever your trash day is. But if trash day is Monday, I guarantee on Sunday night you're out there breaking more boxes down and putting in recycles than you've ever done before, right? Because you order something from a retailer at 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and 1 o'clock on the same day. How many packages are showing up? 3. 3 different trucks, 3 different packages, and guess what? How big of a box does this show up in? Massive. No, it's a real issue. Unless you're a box manufacturer or a dunnage manufacturer, then you're right. So if Mike is here from Graphics Packaging, they're having a field day over there. But really, it's a real issue. It's a real issue for footprint, for mileage, for CO2 footprint, and for sustainability. And it comes back to this want versus need. Do you need those things tomorrow? Do you even want them tomorrow? But you're hardly given a choice. You're hardly given a choice. Comes down to order aggregation, right? Being able to say, you know what, I'm going to place this order, but when the technology sees another order coming in from you 2 hours later, we've got to be able to join them together. But that's actually quite a bit harder than you would think from an underlying technology perspective, because most of those orders are fire and forget, right? The order gets placed and it gets rushed into the process, and then you can't unwind it. So we're frankly working on innovation and technology that gives all of our customers, retailers, manufacturers, wholesalers, the ability to be able to recognize that second, third, and fourth order from you and be able to flag it to you and say, look, if you're prepared to have that delivery in 2 days, 3 days, 5 days versus all 3 packages tomorrow in separate cartons with separate dunnage, this is the impact on the carbon footprint. You make the decision. And I believe if we had that information and knew the impact on the carbon footprint, we would make different decisions. 3 days, 4 days, I think would be fine. So that's a little bit of a platform for us, frankly, that we are trying to get some traction with.
Why don't we open up to audience Q&A? Questions? I see Randall right here.
My question's about globalization. So we've had this series of events that for people all the way up the supply chain to normal consumers like me have sort of torn back the curtain on the fragility of our supply chain,
Yeah, sure.
how vulnerable we are. So, pandemic was the big one.
Yeah.
Ships out off of LA and
Yeah.
nobody can move anything. And then you've got Putin. It's like maybe relying on dictators for our energy is not a great idea.
Yeah.
To a boat taking a wrong turn in the Suez Canal and I can't get, the
Right.
shoes, right? It's just a
Right.
bizarre unveiling of how fragile this whole thing
Sure.
is. What does that cause in terms of what supply chain trends are going to look like in the future, right? So one option is they can lurch towards, let's rely on fewer options, safer options, things we can control more, yada, yada,
Yeah.
which has bad outcomes, and then versus
Yeah.
maybe let's diversify more, which could also have bad outcomes.
Yeah. I just think there's going to be greater balance. We've been single-threaded is a bit of an overstatement, but we've been a lot more single-threaded than we should have been. It's very hard to build contingency and resiliency into a supply chain when you're single-threaded because of those single points of failure. So the nearshoring and the onshoring, you're not going to see all manufacturing move back to, but you are going to see a balance of critical manufacturing moving nearshore or onshore to create that resiliency and contingency for sure. Yeah.
Mr. Yates?
Eddie, thank you, and John, thank you for your leadership and growing the company.
Sure.
Also, I want to recognize David DeBerry, who was part of the early team as well,
Sure.
And then, of course, Tom Noonan. But Eddie, Manhattan Associates has been one of the most successful tech companies in our community over the last 20 years, and it's been one of the public companies that's continued to the community. Can you talk a little bit about the company itself now, especially given the hybrid workforce nature? Many people would be interested in knowing what you're doing in that regard, and also the culture of the company, how you've maintained that culture and grown the business during that time.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer, John, to how we've maintained the culture. It's been, I feel like it's been a real roll up your sleeves company from day one. You've heard about the folklore of moving from Manhattan Beach to Atlanta and the 3 reasons, generally Hartsfield, time zone, and the source of talent. I would tell you though, and David knows firsthand, a little exaggeration in terms of the first thing, but one of the first things that Manhattan did in 1995 when they moved here went directly to Georgia Tech campus to hire some engineers. So it was a first very small handful of engineers. There was 34, I think, people relocated from Manhattan Beach, so hired a handful. The guy that runs the biggest single part of our business today is one of those hires from Georgia Tech. So been with us 26 years, our longest tenured employee, and was one of the guys that David and his brother and others, Deepak, recruited from Georgia Tech. So we have a long thread of maintaining that culture. We've had the good fortune, again, I think it's amazing how the thread of culture is maintained. We've had the good fortune to be a profitable company for all 32 years of our existence, but also, sorry about this, bankers, but never had a penny of debt. And from the day that the company was founded to still, that is generally our mantra today. Cash is king, and I think that helps us stay grounded. We're out in front of our customers each and every day on the forefront of understanding what their challenges are. As it moves, as we move into this hybrid app position, is with our employees. We'd like for you to come to the office 3 days a week and 2 days of flexibility. If you want to come to the office, obviously more than that you can. I think it's very important. Personally, I think those companies that have said 0 days in the office. I believe that's suicide. Frankly, I think the dilution of culture and education through osmosis and so forth is very, very important. Very important to us. And we're seeing our teams come back to the office. It is not a drag and not a push, and we're not having to pull them back to the office. They want to be together for sure. We're pleased to see that.
And as I've addressed groups over the years, I've said it very openly and proudly that of all the companies I've been involved with throughout my career, which is probably, I sort of added up, close to 100 different boards over this long period of time, but Manhattan has by far the best corporate culture, the best people. I think you can see Eddie is a reflection of that. It just radiates throughout the organization. And it's something, I am personally concerned, and I voiced that with the whole management team, about people not being in the office. They don't get to see Eddie walking around, how he interacts with people. They don't see the other department heads and how they interact, how the departments themselves interact, person to person at that peer level. It is such a strong, that was created early on. The founder of the company set this tone early on, and thank God we've been able to maintain it over all these years, because it is the best corporate culture I've ever been affiliated with. And I think that contributes to the success of the company and the ongoing success of what we're doing. So.
Eddie or John, I'm looking at the macro picture. I'm Jeff Rosenzweig. I teach a course, kind of business and a global economy at Guzway Business School at Emory. Yeah. And there's a risk of stagflation, or there's more talk about that. And I hadn't thought about that we're going to have a supply shortage in the fall, because they didn't build this stuff last year for this Christmas.
Right.
Meanwhile, we have this tremendous demand coming from extra $6 trillion of government spending.
Right.
Federal Reserve more than doubling its balance sheet. Will we almost not be able to avoid inflation because we got excess demand coming? We can't avoid it. And does that mean the Federal Reserve is going to have to slam on the brakes hard enough that we could be thrown into recession and end up with stagflation?
Yeah, listen, you're the economist. I mean, I'm a dumb old supply chain guy here. But I can, I certainly, look, the demand is strong. There's no question about that. Supply is, supply, whether it be real estate, personal real estate, or inventory coming from the Far East. And it's not just here, right? We have customers, across. I forget exactly how many, 55 countries around the world in which we do business, and demand is strong everywhere, right? The pull and the tug on to get their hands on that very valuable inventory is not just a U.S. It's just not a U.S. issue. Right. It is a global issue for sure.
And like I said in my opening comment, like that sign on the truck. If you're not happy with this, stop buying stuff, because the demand just keeps getting more and more intense. Yeah.
I think that's a great takeaway for the day. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Please join me in thanking Eddie and John. Fascinating.
Thanks for having us. Thanks.
We are on to the next chapter in our supply chain. Next week, please join us for PJ Bain and Gardner Gerard. We will look at this from the FinTech perspective. So have a wonderful week, and a reminder, the board meeting is straight across the hall. Thank you.